In many parts of Africa, wages are low, infant mortality is high, and people suffer diseases forgotten in the developed world. Human beings are in abundance, and often it seems their lives are valued cheaply. But Ghanaians don't hold that view. Despite their poverty, many insist on giving loved ones an expensive send-off. They pay for elaborate funerals where the coffin tells its own story about a life already lived. Along the busy road to Teshi near the country's capital of Accra, craftsmen create coffins to symbolise the person they'll hold. A truck for a driver, a fish for a fisherman, or a spanner for a mechanic. Custom-made caskets designed to show how a person made their mark amongst the living. Standard, though elaborate coffins tend to sit in the showroom. The coffin makers from Teshi are not about creating ready-made boxes. Often grieving families travel to the workshop in Teshi with a photo or a design from which the coffin can be built. They speak to Sidi, the man whose father started the business. Sidi is more than just his nickname, it's also Ghana's currency, a good indication that he's not making coffins for love alone. A hard businessman, he explains the significance of his work in simple terms.
Only for people to see the thing that maybe something like this spanner. You can say the person is an engineer or a mechanic. So once he died, maybe the family will decide to bury him with a tool.
Saturday is the most popular day for funerals, but most coffins aren't ordered before Wednesday. And there's no escaping the pressures of deadlines in this business. By week's end, the 25 craftsmen and their apprentices will be busy. 3 orders for specialised caskets have already come in. Still, the young coffin makers sometimes need encouragement to stick to their task. Though the senior men don't always lead by example, the atmosphere amongst the workers is easy and relaxed. For young apprentices striving to become master coffin builders, there's no shortcuts. Elbow grease is the main ingredient, with plenty of sanding to be done, and reeds to be bashed, ready for a lion's mane. Cats of prey are always popular choices to send off a proud or powerful person. 2 are being made this week in addition to the spanner for the coming Saturday's funerals. But there is more work on the way. On Thursday, a special order arrives, the mythical Apueso. Legend has it that this animal, which looks like a kind of monkey, kills prey by gripping it until it starves. While its victim struggles to free itself, the Apueso is said to turn its head to avoid looking, knowing that it will be filled with pity and release its grip if it looks into the eyes of its next meal.
This animal, I think, is a wicked animal, and I think the man too is the elder of the family, and they are normal judges, and some of the judges, when they have very hard. So I think this animal is their symbol in the family.
The coffin will hold the chief linguist for the King of St James Palace in the city of Accra. For half a century, he was in charge of all communications with the king, a position of great power and influence. Pa Willie is the dead man's nephew, and he's been put in charge of ensuring the coffin is made properly and on time.
We choose another coffin. By the chief himself, say he will supply the coffin, so he himself choose what he like.
This animal particular, we haven't done some before. This is our first time of doing this.
Sidi's men are undaunted by the task and relish creating a new design for a coffin. But this is a difficult job. The coffin is for a very important man who has been dead for over 2 weeks. The order has come in late, and the Apueso is to be picked up within 36 hours. Spray painting begins on the eve of the funeral, and the compressor sounds a constant reminder to the coffin makers that time is ticking away. Sidi knows excuses won't be good enough for any of the grieving families.
I have to work all through day and night to complete it for them, because they can't shift the day again. They can't say they are going to bury the person on Sunday or Monday. So by all means, I have to finish it today or tomorrow morning.
The relaxed atmosphere is gone. There's no panic, but the coffin makers have gone quiet. no more jokes as they work to get 4 coffins ready to leave the workshop. Joseph, the designer, is in charge of the appaway that the carpenters have made ready. He works quickly and skillfully under the light of a single bulb to get the mythical beast ready for its one big day. The paint's still drying, but Pa Willie and his family are happy. The job is done and the coffin will be in place and on time for the morning's funeral. St James Palace was controlled for long periods by the English. The foreign rulers left their religious teachings behind, and those lessons dominate the people's beliefs. But this is a traditional funeral, and dozens of chiefs and their queens have turned out for a day that will become a reference point in the lives of many mourners. Neocrati II is one who sits near the King of St James Palace as mourners arrive to pay their respects with a solemn handshake. A chief in his own right, he says the chief linguist deserves such a large funeral because he was an important leader for his people.
As a matter of fact, for the past 15 years, almost all new chiefs who had been installed had been done by him. He's done the traditional aspects of all installments. Yeah. I myself, he did the same thing for me. So he's an important dignitary in the setup of Jamestown, and must be given that kind of recognition.
Guns are fired in the air, beckoning the whole community to the funeral. And drums beat out a traditional message of goodbye while the king leads his people in a ritual dance, asking the gods to welcome the chief linguist after his journey from this life. The king and his chiefs must pay their last respects to the body of the dead man, but not until the women have prepared Aya Ato for his journey. In the same way that the drums herald the passing of an important man, so too do the songs of the grieving women. They make sure the chief linguist is given everything he needs before he leaves them for the last time. When the men enter, each must see with his own eyes that the chief linguist is dead. Outside, it's a long day for many mourners who sit in the heat, while much of the funeral takes place inside the palace. Just as custom-made coffins have done for centuries, the appaway will play an important role in the funeral ceremony.
As you can see, every linguistic which passes, those things in gold, they've all got their significance. They say something, you see, and he being the man who was attached to the king of Jamestown, he has to be buried in something much more related to his importance within the Jamestown stream.
With the body of the chief linguist placed in the appaway, the final stages of the ceremony begin, and the congregation gathers for the Christian aspects of the funeral. Members of the dead man's family carry the coffin as it is paraded through Jamestown, a chance for last goodbyes on the streets where Aya Ato spent his life. Children join the mass of red and black marching along the road as the appaway seems to dance above them all. The procession is undaunted by the hour-long march to the burial ground, and the singing is strong from start to finish. Traffic is forced to drive around the funeral mass as it weaves its way to Neojo Cemetery. When the appaway is spotted staring over its final resting place, children line the walls in anticipation. Only chiefs and their wives are buried here. As the chief linguist is lowered into the grave, there is relief. Hundreds have taken part, and all who saw the coffin know it is the chief linguist, Aya Ato, who has passed. The man who was so integral to St James Palace for half a century has been paid the respect he deserves.
person on Sunday or Monday. So by all means, I have to finish it today or tomorrow morning.
The relaxed atmosphere is gone. There's no panic, but the coffin makers have gone quiet. No more jokes as they work to get 4 coffins ready to leave the workshop. Joseph, the designer, is in charge of the Appaway that the carpenters have made ready. He works quickly and skillfully under the light of a single bulb to get the mythical beast ready for its one big day. The paint's still drying, but Pa Willie and his family are happy. The job is done and the coffin will be in place and on time for the morning's funeral. St James Palace was controlled for long periods by the English. The foreign rulers left their religious teachings behind, and those lessons dominate the people's beliefs. But this is a traditional funeral, and dozens of chiefs and their queens have turned out for a day that will become a reference point in the lives of many mourners. Neocrati II is one who sits near the King of St James Palace as mourners arrive to pay their respects with a solemn handshake. A chief in his own right, he says the chief linguist deserves such a large funeral because he was an important leader for his people.
As a matter of fact, for the past 50 years, almost all new chiefs who had been installed had been done by him. He's done the traditional aspects of all installments. Yeah. I myself, he did the same thing for me. So he's an important dignitary in the setup of Jamestown and must be given that kind of recognition.
Guns are fired in the air, beckoning the whole community to the funeral. And drums beat out a traditional message of goodbye while the king leads his people in a ritual dance, asking the gods to welcome the chief linguist after his journey from this life. The king and his chiefs must pay their last respects to the body of the dead man, but not until the women have prepared Aya Ato for his journey. In the same way that the drums herald the passing of an important man, so too do the songs of the grieving women. They make sure the chief linguist is given everything he needs before he leaves them for the last time. When the men enter, each must see with his own eyes that the chief linguist is dead. Outside, it's a long day for many mourners who sit in the heat, while much of the funeral takes place inside the palace. Just as custom-made coffins have done for centuries, the Appaway will play an important role in the funeral ceremony.
As you can see, every linguistic which passes, those things in gold, they've all got their significance. They say something, you see, and he being the man who was attached to the king of Jamestown, he has to be buried in something much more related to his importance within the Jamestown street.
With the body of the chief linguist placed in the Appaway, the final stages of the ceremony begin, and the congregation gathers for the Christian aspects of the funeral. Members of the dead man's family carry the coffin as it is paraded through Jamestown, a chance for last goodbyes on the streets where Aya Ato spent his life. Children join the mass of red and black marching along the road as the Appaway seems to dance above them all. The procession is undaunted by the hour-long march to the burial ground, and the singing is strong from start to finish. Traffic is forced to drive around the funeral mass as it weaves its way to Neojo Cemetery. When the Appaway is spotted staring over its final resting place, children line the walls in anticipation. Only chiefs and their wives are buried here. As the chief linguist is lowered into the grave, there is relief. Hundreds have taken part, and all who saw the coffin know it is the chief linguist, Aya Ato, who has passed. The man who was so integral to St James Palace for half a century has been paid the respect he deserves. In Ghana, religion is a powerful force, and Christianity is one faith which dominates this West African nation. Emmanuel Akrona leads the Bethel Assembly of the Pentecostal Church of Christ.
In the olden days, people knew there was God. The people here knew there was God. But the medium through which they were serving God is what was wrong. It's like serving stones as their God, serving rocks as their gods, serving the rivers as their gods. And this had been with the people over the ages. And since the gospel of Christ had come, the faith must also change.
Millions set aside Sunday for Jesus, and they worship him with fervour. But hymns aren't the only songs sung on holy days. In this poor part of Accra, Ghana's capital, the answer to over 1,000 prayers lies not with Christ, but with young professional footballers. Today it's the Soccer Killers up against Crazy Bontia, another match in the South Swalaba Football Association competition. Of the 5 boys on each team, none is older than 9. Each is paid the equivalent of a Ghanaian carpenter's daily wage, or about $4 a match. The Soccer Killers coach pays the players in cedis, the national currency.
We pay them 8,000, sometimes 10,000 and things. When we win the game, we used to pay them 10,000. But when we lose, we pay them 8,000 cedis.
For players like Daddy, the Soccer Killers captain, the money is vital, not just for him, but for his whole family. Without his match payments, he'd be just another mouth to feed.
I use some to buy bandages and my pants and my shirts. And other, I give some to my mother.
We share the money to the players. And sometimes we used to, when we don't have enough money, we used to buy this thing, food, so that they all eat.
A passion for football is undeniable amongst the crowd, but it's gambling which lures many to worship at this rugged pitch. And betting is vital to the league's existence. There's no way to make spectators pay to watch, so wages between the organisers of each team keep the struggling association alive. Its president, George Thompson, holds the kitty for each match.
Yeah, go. Correct. So if you say your team can win and my team can win, let's bet. And you bring your money. Any team wins, then it takes the money. The winner will take all.
A bet can be laid on anything from the final result to the next scorer. So the boys take shots from anywhere. They know it's good to be the one to deliver the winnings.
The church is against gambling, and that's why the church is always hammering on the government to do something about gambling, which is destroying most lives in Ghana. In Ghana, we feel gambling is doubling money, and God's word do not allow people to double money. You are to work with your hands, and God will bless the work that you do.
While money is won and lost on football, religions throughout Ghana collect hard-earned alms from their poor followers. But they seem happy to share what little they have for charitable works.
We are doing that. You know, the schools have established orphanages. We've established vocational schools where those street children are getting trained. They've established catering schools where those who were not privileged to go to higher institutions go there to get the trade. It was the missions that brought schools that made us know A from B. Formerly we didn't know. And so Christianity has really helped us a lot. And it is moving us forward.
For most Ghanaians, tomorrow offers little more than today. So when Crazy Bontia managed to slip a goal past the soccer killer's keeper, the crowd celebrates like there is indeed no tomorrow. The goal scorer is an instant hero and his fans are happy. But some say celebrations like this have no foundation when money is won and lost on a poor boy's bandaged foot.
Yes, it's a big problem because out of gambling, a lot of the youth are getting destroyed because laziness comes out of gambling. People don't want to work with their hands, and yet they want to get in abundance. And then if they don't win, whatever gambling they are engaged in, it turns them into wayward lives. That is stealing, armed robbery, and a whole lot of things. So the church is really concerned.
While the boys dream of football glory, the cost can be high. In heavily populated, developing countries like Ghana, people can seem to be expendable, and there are always more boys waiting to play, adding to the pressure to perform.
Yes, I play serious.
In such a poor country, it's easy to understand the appeal of playing soccer for money. Not only does each game put food in 10 boys' bellies, it also fuels dreams of truly professional careers. And after a decade of the association, there are already international players who began their careers on this dirt pitch.
We have produced a lot of players from this small park. Players like Gordon Atram, he's under 17 captain. The under 17 captain, we produced him from this same park. Stephen Aprea, under 17 player, key player, he is now professional at Europe. He also from this year. And the Laikiston, the one who scored the Nigerian goal, he also was started. And these three players that I mentioned were from these soccer killers. But we need support, we need financial support to go to be on the official level so that we can create like premier teams.
In a part of the world where most are born with nothing to lose, life can come down to a choice of faith. Either way, it's a gamble. The chance of winning today against hopes of religious salvation. Better to smile because in Bookham there's no running from a fight. Once the line is drawn, even boys must stand their ground in the tough heart of Accra, Ghana's capital. A crowd grows quickly and won't accept a backward step. But these 11-year-olds are willing and fight in whatever gloves they can get. Boxing is in their blood and social standing is at stake. The crowd's excitement breeds pressure. Each boxer has an extended camp of supporters riding on every punch, itching to throw a few of their own. Everyone immersed in the action is from the Ga tribe. Its people live throughout Accra and the city's surrounds, but only in the small enclave of Bookham is boxing a way of life central to their identity. As a boy, a scratched-out ring gave ETA Abbey his first experience of the Bookham boxing phenomenon. Now he's an expert in Ga culture.
The other tribes, the other ethnic groups, are afraid to fight to see blood oozing. But we take delight in fighting. And if you feel like boxing, all you have to do is to clench your fists, roll it in the air, put it on your head, and shout do 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 do. If anybody wants to fight you, or he feels he can fight you, he will also respond OIA, then you start fighting.
Like 95% of Ghana's boxing squad, 19-year-old Olympian Alfred Teti first proved himself in Bukom. And he finds no mystery in the fact that class fighters and world champions like Azuma Nelson had their beginnings on his town's poor streets. It has always been that way.
Our forefathers, they are there already to go. Their ghost is there. So when you started boxing from there, they follow you. When you're going to fight, they all follow you to going to fight. You know? They all follow you to going to fight. So they give you more strength to fight.
ETA Abbey adds that Bukom's boxing spirit has just as much to do with the pride of the living and the lessons they teach their children.
You see, because you shouldn't go home and tell the parents that I was beaten by this and so forth. It's a shame. So you have to fight. And that's how we have been trained. We are trained to defend ourselves. So even in the ring, it's a shame to be beaten and go back.
Alfred Teti knows that. He had his first fight on the streets at 11. He won and kept on winning. Keen to become someone through boxing, he began to train seriously after his third victory. Up at 4:30 each morning, he put in 2 hours before school. By the end of lessons at midday, he was cutting hair in his brother's barber shop. His wages paid for a coach who sharpened his street skills in a backyard gym. After training, Alfred was back for another stint working the clippers until he went to bed at about 9. But 5 years of hard work paid off. In 1996, all eyes were on Alfred Teti as the 16-year-old won 3 fights in Atlanta. He says the Olympic judges robbed him of a medal chance, but with Sydney on the horizon, he hasn't lowered his sights.
Yeah, if I take Olympic gold, I think I'll feel so happy. So now I want to prove myself to these Olympian Games. I have to take gold for Ghana.
Each weekday, Ghana's best amateur boxers join each other at Accra Stadium for Olympic squad training. Like Alfred, almost all call Bukom home, and their bond is obvious. But from a squad of 30, only a few will see Sydney in 2000. Competition for an Olympic spot is fierce. Athletes are expensive to send overseas, and Ghana's whole 1998 Commonwealth Games team in Kuala Lumpur numbered only 31. A Cuban, Miguel Perez Castellanos, came to Western Africa in 1995 to coach Ghana's boxing team. He's learnt the Bukom boys' language and barks instructions in a broken mixture of Ga and English, all the while watching for the trademarks of a medal winner. Miguel knows his fighters love boxing. They rip into each other, and some would rather throw punches than worry about headgear or mouth guards. They're all talented and hungry for success. 1 gold and 3 bronze medals in 1998 at Kuala Lumpur ranked the team 4th in the Commonwealth. Apart from their Bukom background, the boxers have something else in common. They're all poor. Each trains morning and night, but few have any regular income. Miguel is never sure whether they've got enough money to eat properly, or how long he can hold them in the amateur ranks. The lure of the professional circuit and actually getting paid to fight is strong. Few of the boxers would easily dismiss the notion of fighting for a purse, no matter how good their prospects of an Olympic medal. And that's a real problem. Preparation of amateur fighters in developed countries may run from 4 to 6 years. Miguel says he can only count on 12 months of training with any of his boxers. In that way, Alfred Teti is an exception. He already has Olympic experience, and at 19, he's still young enough to build a long professional career. But for all Ghana's amateur boxers, Olympic success is seen as the first step towards making a living in the ring. What's more, each of them want to add to the legend of Bukom boxing. And according to the Olympic Committee, that's an advantage that Ghana's representatives will have over the rest of the world in Sydney 2000.
When they know they can make it, that is their major motivation. Learning from the past heroes, the Azumas, the Aikwotes, the others who have ever come from those areas. You see, these people get just one single motivation. Yes, our man who comes from our midst has made it. We can also make it.
Ghana is crowded, its cities are crammed, and there is nowhere to escape the poverty. Every morning, women and girls make a pilgrimage towards the centre of Accra, the nation's capital, looking for work. Cantamanto Market is one destination where they swelter under a patchwork tin roof to make a living. Many become human beasts of burden, and their heads bear huge loads. When trains arrive, it is these porter women who distribute the essentials of life to and from thousands of stalls. The financial controller of the market says the women's work is vital.
The place is congested. So if you come from the hinterlands and you buy, you have to carry them from point to point. Maybe the customer cannot do that. So he needs the porter to carry it along with them. And most of them are trustworthy. They will do it without stealing anything.
Porter women in Accra can make $4 or $5 a day, more money than they could scrape together anywhere else. To earn it, they come from all over the small nation. In markets like Cantamanto, they find a social fabric. It becomes their church and teaches them about life in the city.
They come from the north, so they don't speak. Some don't speak any language, maybe, but they are fast. When they come within a month or two, they can communicate. The market is their classroom. So some come, they don't even, the currencies, they don't know.
Separated from their families, hard-earned money is often sent back home.
Most of them, initially, they will sleep at some ghettos. But when they get money, they're able to rent places of their own. Most of them say they want to go back. Some are wives to some people there. And so they come here, get some money, buy some cooking utensils, some clothes, and go back to their husbands.
Generations of mothers and wives like this one have moved away from their families to put food on the table.
I come here to earn the money to send it back to the north to look after my children. I'm not happy here, but I am praying that I will earn enough money as early as possible so I can go back home.
While they can't do the back-breaking work forever, the daily toil offers a glimpse of another life.
Most of them are from the north. Some are from the hinterlands. They come here to do this. Even some who stay, maybe someone, after working for about a year or two, getting some little capital, they go to learn the trade. We have a lot of them who sponsor themselves in trade, maybe hairdressing, dressmaking, or other jobs where after getting some initial capital from the doing of the porter.
Throughout Accra, shops and stores often seem set to explode with uniformed apprentices. In hairdressing salons, up to 20 girls spill onto the footpath, weaving elaborate braids into each other's hair, watching, learning and enjoying their time together. There aren't enough paying customers to justify jobs for them all, but these girls are here to learn, not get paid. Apprenticeships last for 2.5 years, 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. Each girl must bring her own towels, rollers and supply a crate of soft drink for her fellow apprentices on the day she starts. When they finish, they don't get a job, but they do leave armed with a certificate and the hope of starting their own salon.
Okay, this work is very important for women because if you marry and you don't have work, your husband won't even help you well. But if you get work from your own hands, you can establish your own store and do your own thing to help your family to grow well. That's why we meant to do hairdressing.
For centuries, African riches bled from this beautiful white castle on the continent's west coast. First, trade in bullion from Elmina ensured Ghana was known to the world as the Gold Coast. Later, foreign profiteers sought to pilfer an even greater wealth. Elmina Castle became a prison, and millions of African people were shipped into slavery. Women carried much of this terrible burden, and still today, their lot in this village is a tough one. Survival depends on what can be coaxed from the sea each day. Most of the men can't swim, but they will stand in their boats casting nets all night. The women at market are the ones who bear the financial risks. Every day they battle for the best bargain. Years of tough experience leaving footsteps for their daughters to follow. Eunice Hasford began working in the Elmina fish market as a 13-year-old girl. She's now paid a salary as a clerk, but hasn't forgotten how hard it is for women who are responsible for both a family and a business.
It's not easy at all. It's very hard. In this scorching sun, they will stand in the sun until the sun sets off. Sometimes you get profit, sometimes you will lose. When 20 of the villagers came here, you gain more profit. At times the villagers don't come, so you see that your fish will go stinky or it will spoil. You have to throw it away, so you will lose. At the end of the day, when they go home, they were tired, and even they can't even get time for their children or the family.
For women, working and raising a family in Ghana is not about career choices or breaking through the glass ceiling. It's about living a life where nothing can be taken for granted. Throughout Africa, survival is the daily priority for millions of people. But the challenge is greater for the disabled, and life for them can become a constant struggle. In Ghana, people with disabilities battle ignorance, and many must beg to survive. Prejudice against them is obvious, and they have little hope of ever finding work. Caesar Jakunu coaches the country's best disabled athletes, and he says some people with disabilities are hidden by their families and have never seen the sun.
The disabled, they have a problem. Some are not working. Some are not even schooling, right? So it's like in Ghana, not like in your country, whereby the parents will bring them out to special schools or special homes for these people so that they can be exposed to the society. The able ones look on them as not fit to be part of the society. So that's how, so because of that, they look down on them. So excuse me to say, when you walk by our streets, you find some by the roadside asking for arms. Whereas apart from maybe the limbs, the lower limb, which is not okay, so they are healthy.
The government does not do much to ease the plight of the disabled. Running water and proper drainage are still goals in much of Ghana. So people with disabilities are well down politicians' priority list. For the greater part, the disabled must help themselves. Angelina Boateng was crippled by polio as a child. Now she's Ghana's champion for every wheelchair track event from 100 to 800 metres. But podium glory hasn't changed the realities of her life. When she was a girl, her father made sure she could sew. He told her she would have to earn money for herself because no one would give her a job.
If you are in Ghana, if you don't do a work, you won't get money to eat. That is why my father told me that I'll go and learn a seamstress. If you are a disabled, it will be difficult that you get office work. You are not get That is why most of them are a seamstress. That is our work in Ghana.
A wheelchair is a luxury and Angelina's training is limited without one, especially when she must travel 20 kilometres from her home to the track.
I don't have wheelchair in this house, so that is why I go to the stadium and train. If I not get a money, I won't go to train. If I won't do this sewing, that one, I won't get a money to go to train. That is why I do the seamstress to touch my training.
Kumasi is not Ghana's largest city, but its athletes have a tradition of dominating the national championships. The country's finest sprinters train at Kumasi Stadium, and now they share the track with equally talented disabled competitors. The whole squad still uses the wheelchairs donated by an American charity in 1995. Within 2 years of that gift, events for people with disabilities were added to the program at Ghana's National Athletic Championships. Though these athletes may be inspirational, their equipment isn't. The small squad battles desperately to wring every ounce of speed from wheelchairs more at home in a hospital. Life in West Africa has taught these athletes with disabilities not to expect anything to come easily. Poverty makes it hard for all athletes chasing dreams of gold medals, and every sport in Ghana is crying out for funds. Steve Atuahane is Ghana's able-bodied athletics coach and the man responsible for scheduling the first disabled events on the national championship program.
Well, you know, Ghana, it's a general problem that we all face, and athletes face the same problem, football face the same problem, but we try to manage with the little results that we have.
The Ghana Olympic Committee agrees that steering the government's attention to sports funding is never easy, but then it's hard to get money for anything.
We are crying that even though education is first, health is first, and others are also first among equals, sports is the unifying force for this great country of ours. If a little more can be taken away from maybe some 0.5% each way into sports, just to produce infrastructure, if the lawmakers would add just a little more to what is given to sports, I'm sure so much extra can be achieved.
Inflation has ravaged the national currency, eroding confidence in tomorrow, tightening poverty's grip. For these athletes who also have to cope with misunderstanding, despair would be understandable. But in the face of such obstacles, their greatest strength is an astoundingly positive attitude. The key to this approach comes from their coach, Caesar Jakunu. A successful athlete in his own right, this prison guard's career coaching people with disabilities had a simple start.
But one day I came here and I saw something I don't like. I said, please, would you mind if I make a suggestion? So, oh, you're welcome. I said, this is done this way.
Caesar is inspired by his small group. He trains both the men's and women's national sprint champions, and his athletes dominate the competition in all events. They look up to him, but he admits it hasn't always been easy to convince them of their potential, especially when they've lived in a world of doubt for so long.
The real difficulty I find it, or I get it, trying to let them understand what I want to put across to them. That's the whole thing. So once they get it, fine. Because I tell them that, suffer now. When you make it, you can even play your national anthem. The president will stand for you. That's the target. We always aim at the goal, no matter what. Once we have life, we are able to do. We will be able to do it. We don't. If in this competition I fail, I know where I failed. I'm going to start from where I failed and continue. So till I win the medal, I don't give up. So also that's what you see in my people doing.
His athletes lack the technical support, equipment or weight training programs available to competitors in the developed world. But Caesar still insists that his chargers think like champions. He encourages them to believe each obstacle they overcome gives them an edge over athletes in the developed world where life is easy.
We Ghanaians count ourselves winners. We don't give up easily. We are hard to crack. So we have this notion that if you can do it, with all your facilities there, with my manner once here, you can be able to do it better. So if I've made them understand that, just train in your house. Come and do these things for me. These are the international records that the champions have set. Try to beat it here with our minor equipment here. When you get to the international level, come on, you are equally, if not better, to them.
The brightest examples of athletes who have wholeheartedly adopted their mentor's approach are Angelina Boateng and Yor Olbeng.
I'm the champion of the nation. I want to train hard, and every day I'm training hard, and then I want to win the African gold medal for my nation. Secondly, and then I want to go to outside, like abroad, and then bring gold medal for my nation too.
Yor says he's not daunted by bigger, stronger international athletes. Instead, he's confident that if he can get to the Paralympics in 2000, he can win gold.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it because I'm very hard training in my country. So I can break the world record too. Yeah. I'm 100% confident that I can do it.
Angelina shares the same confidence built by tough work on the track.
My target is that if I train hard, I will be a champion. If you don't train, you will not be a champion. So my target is I will train hard and I'll be a champion.
An outsider would say that these impoverished athletes who have trouble paying their way to training will never afford the trip to Sydney for the Paralympics. And even if they did make it, they wouldn't win a medal anyway. But Caesar's response to that is predictably positive.
So, I mean, don't be surprised if the year 2000 you see them around. That's the target, honestly. And what somebody can do, we want to say we can do it better.
Yes, I can be a champion. I want to be a champion in the year 2000. So you must see me in Australia to be a champion.
Ghana has beauty in abundance but faces an uphill battle to keep pace with the modern world. Amongst West African nations, its people are well educated and most children complete primary school. Still, the majority of its 18 million population survive on what the land offers. In Pankrono, north from Kumasi, these women in their 80s are the last in an ancestral line of potters that's 1,000 years long. Children aren't interested in their craft because its products are slow to move from roadside stalls, a fact which threatens both the town's history and its future.
It's our ancestors' culture and we are new generation. We have to learn. You see, it means when these old people die, this thing also is going to collapse. As you can see now, you came and met only old people. And in case they died, nobody is going to learn from them. And nobody knows what it is. And as I have acquired a little bit education, I know that it's better for us to learn.
Pots of every size and shape sell for between 50 cents and $3 American. Hardly good value for the hours of backbreaking work that goes into each one from the time they first dig up the raw materials.
We have different types of the clay. We mix them. We have the yaya, that is the male one, and then they have the thickest one, that is the female one. They add them together because you cannot use the thickest one alone, nor using the male one alone. You have to combine them.
Ghanaians no longer rely on the pots to store their food, and most of the old women's work is too large or fragile to fit into a traveller's backpack. So the piles of unsold pots continue to grow. The women of Pankrono know little else, and their financial hopes rest with visitors who just come to watch them in action. If the young don't follow their lead, soon there will be nothing to see.
You see, before, the grandchildren used to learn, but as at now, they have not been learning because of the school. They thought it was dirty work. But they don't know that this is attracting more tourists.
A short trip north and there's no such problems for the wood carvers of Awea. Young minds are convinced by the importance of continuing their forefathers' work and making the most of tourist dollars.
The clay works, I mean, the Americans who do come here for tourists, I mean, they are not interested in clay works. And it's only the Ghanaians who do buy the clay works. And now, due to the high technology which have brought in the fridges and the rest, people are not interested in the clay works that's pots as in the olden days. So as for these works, carving works, I mean, people from outside the country do come here. We have orders and the rest, and we earn a lot from it. That's why this one keeps on going.
Carvers' sons rest easy in the knowledge that their father's trade will make their future secure. Apprenticeships start when the boys are 11. With hard work and ability, they can graduate quickly.
Actually, it depends on the person's intelligence. Some can take about, say, 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years, maximum of 4 years, to be a qualified carver.
Boys first learn to draw the outlines of statues, profiles and stools, which they mostly carve from single blocks of wood. It's tough work in anyone's language.
I think it's not easy at all. It's very difficult here. And even during dry season, the woods become very dry, and when using chisels and the rest, it's really difficult.
The effort is worthwhile. These craftsmen can earn more than a school teacher's wage, ensuring that their culture lives on.
Because Ghana, as a developing country, it's not easy to get different jobs. So what we are doing now is that we are trying to teach our children, that's the next generation, which are coming on, so that they also get something to be able to feed their children, which will also come next. That's how it goes. So we are very proud of this.
In the Asante region, the production of kente cloth has survived longer than the buildings around it. It is entwined with tribal culture, a visual representation of a people's history and their aesthetic principles. Feet provide power for the giant looms which make the finely woven cloth sought around the world. While toughened hands battle with shuttle and thread, master craftsmen mimic their whirring sounds. This singing's been heard for the centuries it's taken the craft to evolve.
The kente have been started for so many years, like 400 years and ago. So we will have some patterns that made it in olden days, and some were new designs. But it seems like now I can make my own design, but before the design can come out, unless I show to the kente king. But every kente or every pattern of kente have a name for it. So that is why if you come and say, I need this design, I can make it by not looking at any pattern.
At about 10 years of age, boys start their careers with the simple task of spooling thread. They've been hand-picked and are fortunate to receive the benefits of centuries of knowledge and the financial promise that brings. This master weaver is working on a complex pattern called Adwinasa. Literally, it means the ultimate design. Originally created for the king of the Asantes, the first craftsman who made it is said to have used every motive he knew and all his skill to produce perfection for his ruler.
My grandfather is the best weaver so far here in this house. So he taught my father how to make the kente, and my father also taught me how to do it. So I think since I learned how to make the kente, it has helped me a lot. I mean, in case of giving me money to help myself in school and so many things.
The colour in each design helps to tell its story. Blue for unity, red can represent the blood of ancestors, while gold is for the wealth of the kingdom and black its power. It's this sort of history that attracts Ghanaians and tourists to the beautiful cloth.
When we make it, it seems like people come from around the world to come and buy it. Here I'm very proud to make a kente cloth because it is the work that is a work for my ancestors. It is the work, I mean, that I came to see. So that is the work that my grandfather is doing, my family is doing. So I'm also proud to do that because I know that it's the Kente that has helped them to do everything that they have it here. So I think it is also proud for me to do that.
While many Ghanaians struggle to become part of the developed world, they must also battle the globalisation of their culture. Despite this, it is tourists which could hold the key to their survival.